or been in an airplane, you have another plane, it's called turbulence, right? Well, wind farms create turbulence, but in a three-dimensional manner. The wind's already moving in a weird direction anyhow, and it stops and it starts. And so my point is, we got to hire engineers to space our turbine rows such that we minimize the wake effect based on the property we have available. And we have to space it back from county roads so that we don't create some sort of visual impact. Again, it's not illegal to be ignorant or an idiot. So there's some wind developers that own some stupid things in a certain part of the world. So policy, this is a quick slide, but this is basically saying states, again, you could say, if you color-coded this according to any political election, there's a lot of reds and blues in here. And states have said, we think it's wise to incentivize renewable energy. And my point is, again, not to take a political stance. It's here to say that it's less political, hopefully. It's only when people are less informed or have an agenda that they want to make it a political case. In my opinion, you don't have to agree with it. And these are renewable portfolio standards, or goals, sometimes mandates that states set to encourage development. So why it makes sense for business, we've touched on a lot of this, but there are reduced energy costs and prices. Right now, I can sell wind from Oklahoma around $29 a megawatt hour. That's below the cost of coal and natural gas right now. So wind is pretty inexpensive. And if you took away the subsidy, it's still at under 5 cents, which is still damn competitive. It also, the big one, which again has much more impact on cost, is price volatility. Back to our point earlier, natural gas is volatile. Oil and gas will become, the price will always be volatile because it's a fluid, efficient market. So you have people that take long-term bets and short-term bets, but it's volatile. Policy is also volatile. GHG is greenhouse gas. A whole different conversation, but at the end of the day, if you hunt or fish like I do, you will notice that we have an impact on the environment. And it's good to be a responsible conservator of the environment. Most guys that are really have hunted and fished long enough recognize that. This is my opinion, I think we do have an impact on the world. It's hard to say how much we do, I don't know that answer, but I think we do have an impact on the world. Much like I feel the room's getting hotter because I'm talking a lot right now. Some people, like this former Alcoa company down on the coast, are trying to mitigate their damage to the environment. Aluminum plants don't have a great reputation with not just environmentalists, but with hunters. And you wouldn't often say that business and hunting usually go together. But my point is, aluminum plants have a bad reputation. So these guys want to mitigate that impact because there's a cost to the unknown. And then you could have, quite honestly, a good PR reputation that improves. And so, as George W. Bush did, no one would say he was ever the smartest guy in the room. But Condi Rice and Colin Powell are pretty smart. And even though I don't like him and he's not a happy person, but Dick Cheney's a pretty damn smart guy. Well, I would say these are some pretty dang smart people. And ironically, in the top 10 buyers of wind energy in the country is our alma mater, believe it or not. It may surprise you. But these are all guys that are on the top 50 in A&M universities, but they're in the top 50 per EIA, the government's statistical analysis of energy. They measure this, that are major companies that donate to Republicans, independents, and Democrats, and they are all leading and setting the example. So I don't have to be the smartest guy in the room. I just need to surround myself or emulate what those guys do. You ever heard the state, if you want to be poor, do what poor people do? If you want to be rich, do what rich people do? Well, I want to be smart, and these guys are really smart, so I'm going to try and do what they do. So they're not just buying renewable energy, they're actually making equity investments. Equity is key. You probably don't have much now, but it's pretty key. So our company, I'm not going to do the dog and pony show. We're growing, we're VC backed, we have a lot of projects. VC means it's risky and expensive. And so it doesn't mean it's going to be around forever. We've grown, we've been around since 2007. This basically means we've tried to create a stable market to support our company. I can bore you to death with all this stuff, but here's an odd occurrence. Omar, right? Omar in the blue shirt? Oh, yeah. Omar, right? Yeah. Here's an odd thing. How many wind farm developers do you know get an endorsement from a landowner organization?
Oh, that's hard.
Well, that's the largest, second largest landowner lobby in the country, National Farmers Union. Our company has their endorsement. There's a responsible way of doing development, just like it's not illegal to be an idiot. So anyway, not to read off that. Here's where we have projects. We have a lot. This is what we do. So if you're Mr. Landowner and you say, hey, I want to do a wind farm. Well, it gets really expensive. Remember, it's a power plant. It costs millions of dollars. And me as a dairy farmer, Matthew is sure as heck ain't gonna lend me money, even if I made a lot of money as a dairy farmer. Because there's a lot of complex things. So what we do as a company is that usually someone that doesn't want to just lease out their land, we partner with them. It's kind of like being a Chick-fil-A franchisee. It takes a lot of effort, a little bit of capital, but a heck of a lot of effort. If you've ever been to a Chick-fil-A, you almost always see the owner. They're always there. And they're very detail-oriented, they're hands-on. And that's what we require out of our local partners. And for doing that, they, I don't have the slide, but they get an ownership stake in the project to the tune of about 15 to 20%. So it's a viable stake. So that's our company. That's what we do. I hope you found this interesting and not boring. Before I say thank you, do you have any other questions? No questions off the table. I told you I was gonna. There's your impact on birds. Statistically. Seriously. Look what's the big leader here. So you know what Jerry Patterson, he's the commissioner of the General Land Office of Texas, he's an Aggie. He said we need smarter birds. That's a little bit of a polarizing statement, but you can't argue with statistics. And there's a source for that too, where I can present it to you. Yes, sir.
Were y'all the ones that built the solar deal over the airport San Antonio, the parking garage?
No, sir. We've only recently gotten into solar, and I say we're a small company, so I am the we of solar. But we partner with really smart people, so we have a joint venture relationship with SunPower, the 5th largest module manufacturer in the world. So again, surround yourself with people smarter than you. Yes, yes.
Do you work with architects at all?
We do, but they usually have an engineering background.
Okay.
Short answer. They're usually like structural engineers.
Okay.
Because we want to make sure that our 400-foot tall tower, I have one here. There you go, there's a reference. We want to make sure our towers, that we have an income stream to support, that Matt's giving us money on for 25 years, don't move. That the soils support them. It's kind of important. So you guys better study if you're studying structural. Or maybe thermodynamics. Yes?
Just kind of a really general question. What is your market reception in the sense that when you go to make a pitch to a company to partner with you or to do business or to buy your power or whatever, are they like really receptive, or do you have to do some convincing and then or are they kind of?
It's all over the board. Today, I'll give you a relevant answer. So today, David Massey at College Station Utilities, the director, said, Nathan, I don't need anything right now. And I said, well, David, I don't have anything for you right now. This is a very abridged version. After I told him about how cool our company was and how we all did that, he said, well, it comes down to economics. And I said, well, great. What's your heat rate on your power plant? I said, what's your natural gas price? And I said, how long can you get a natural gas price for? And I said, well, great, I can beat that. And I can lock the price for 20 years. Does that sound attractive? And he said, well, it does. He said, well, let's talk in 2 years when I start to plan and my generation contract comes up. So I'll keep in touch with him. So, yes, that's it.
What are the biggest challenges with offshore farms? Like we're talking about on-site plants. The problem with the land, the problem with airports and all that.
Right.
What about offshore?
I know less about it. From what I know about it, salt water is always an issue. Just the salt air, the density issues. The cool part about offshore wind is that the wind blows at a much more consistent, predictable pattern. So as opposed to doing this, you have fewer peaks and valleys, which is good for the economist, for the lenders, and for the scientists. So you have a much more, your wavelength, is that right? Okay.
Or period.
Yeah, your period, right? Yeah. So I'm hanging myself here. I took a class in the Richardson building, that's the building we're in, by the way. Your wavelength is, what I would say, I could graph this in Excel real well in a financial model. But at the end of the day, in offshore, it's much more predictable. And it's broader, too. It's actually like this. So I don't have as much. It's a nice flowing, much like a wave, you know, in an ocean, very smooth wave. And so, but the challenges I hear are much more like O&M, so operations and maintenance. That's a huge issue. And the technology's getting there. But it's still, I mean, guys, look back at some of the slides. The wind industry is growing at a huge pace. Solar is behind it and picking up rapidly. It's why we need smart engineers like you guys to ask these types of questions, to go into these fields, and to be passionate about it. It took me a long time to figure out what I want to do, but if you can't tell, I'm passionate about what I do. I've gotten paid to be better to be a consultant for Booz Allen, but boring work. Yes, ma'am.
I was just thinking on the other end of the spectrum, how do you feel about more residential, sustainable type models? Is it just better to go big and?
No, distributed generation, so distributing your risk, right? You're stabilizing your load on your power line, which the utilities guys love, because you have a predictable load, balanced flow. They don't like spikes, just like your car. You get better gas mileage when you're smooth. It's the same. I mean, these are my crude analogies, but they're actually right, is what the utility guys tell me. And so I like distributed generation a lot. It's just most people, it's the incentives are very much more market by market. So dependent upon whether the utilities have a favorable feel from their constituents. And so distributed generation is great, but people still need to realize these are power plants even on your house. So you're not going to pay for it in a year, right? So it's like buying tires. You know, you buy tires and you're like, man, they're expensive. But they last for a while. Well, wind isn't realistic to put on your house, but solar panels last for a while. So kind of like buying a house. When you're ready to do it. But don't buy a house if you're going to leave in 2 years. You're going to lose all your enclosing costs and your transactional costs. It doesn't make sense. So it's a relative answer, and there's no, again, don't make generalized statements. It's market by market. But I like it. I think it's good. But it can also be ugly too, right? Yes?
One of the things that I've heard about with distributed production and whatnot is that most of the utility companies, in general, like you say, you don't generalize, but
That's my
they'll pay you like maybe 2 cents per kilowatt hour whenever they're selling it for 12-15 cents per kilowatt hour.
Yeah, they're avoided cost, or they'll net meter it, meaning they'll credit you for what you pay for it. Yeah, it's so. I'm sorry, where I cut you off. Where were you going with that?
No, I mean, to me, the 2 cents per kilowatt hour. How much am I spending per month? How much is this big thing going to cost me? I mean,
it's very much utility by utility,
right.
and it varies utility by utility. So right now in San Antonio, so to that point, we have time. Am I boring y'all? You can say yes, or if you need to leave, I understand. I'll keep answering questions because I like what I do. So solar costs at the residential level, because you're not buying as much, so it's like going to the Stop and Go versus going to Costco. You pay more per unit. So on a residential solar will cost, for easy math, it's about 5 cents a watt. 5 cents a watt. And my point is, the government via the grant will credit you 30% of that to encourage this, because they just want to encourage it. They want to encourage it to you guys to all have jobs beyond one industry. And so 30% of that, let's see, we're $1.50. My math's coming back. I don't know if you sell here. So $1.50 is from the government. So we got $3.50 left. Here's where we're talking about to your point about utilities. So CPS Energy in San Antonio will on a peak or DC level will credit me $2.50 a watt. So out of pocket, I'm $1. That's because CPS Energy in San Antonio really likes this stuff. They're progressive. They think they've made a true business argument out of it, and they're going to promote it, and they want their customers to do it. So they'll incentivize the heck out of it. Again, governments and utilities, which are monopolies by definition, they don't have a lot of incentives to change. So how do they change our behavior? They incentivize you, much like your boss might do one day or your prof might do. So, but Bryan Utilities, I don't believe doesn't offer this, or if they do, they offer something less, or they might offer net metering to your point, which is you pay whatever your retail rate is for energy, 9 cents a kilowatt hour. They'll credit your bill against what you produce. So hence the net term, gross versus net, gross production. They'll net it out versus what you consume. And they'll compensate you for that or reduce your bill by that amount. Or in cases where you produce more, they'll cut you a check. And so depending upon your point of view, you might, there's people I know that in certain things they really